It was Halloween night, and I was 8 years old, preparing to go trick-or-treating with a group of neighborhood kids. I was going with my friend Jenny, her friends Haley and Allie, and Jenny's older brother who would be supervising us. Just as we were about to leave, Jenny's mom announced that she had a few rules for us that must be followed. We must be home by 9 p.m., do not talk to strangers, and wherever we go, do not go down Captain Ellis Lane. Why can't we go down Captain Ellis Lane? I asked her mother, to which the reply was, "That's the rule, now have fun." No further explanation. I knew where that road was because I had driven past it in the car with my mother multiple times, but never gone down it. All I knew was that it was desolate and dark, and had an old abandoned farm a little ways down that road. After a passing thought of, oh, that street is a bit dark and poorly lit, that must be it, I put it out of my mind and left with my friends, ready to enjoy the evening. We trick-or-treated down several other streets and had gathered a lot of candy. People loved my costume and I had a great night. I was ready to head home and mentioned to my friend's brother that we should start heading back. My friends, of course, had other plans. On the way home, we stopped right in front of Captain Ellis Lane. I was perfectly content not going down the road, but all my friends said, "What are you waiting for? Are we going or not?" No, I said. Didn't you hear what Jenny's mom said? We're not supposed to go down this road. It was too late. They had already descended into the darkness, leaving me behind, and I ran ahead to catch up. I looked down the street, and from the view from the main road, it was completely unlit and looked abandoned, in complete contrast to the other streets in the area which were well lit and densely populated. I heard a rattling of a flag against a flagpole, but could not tell where the sound was coming from, and the bristling of the wind through the trees. All I could see was this one house immediately to my right, an old house that looked like a farmhouse at what appeared to be the end of the street, and a large fenced-off plot of land to the right far ahead. The left side of the street was dense with trees. It felt like I was walking down a road in the middle of nowhere, and something was lurking in the shadows, waiting to jump out. I didn't like it one bit. I could barely make out that in the distance, there was a small white shed. All of a sudden, Jenny shouted, 1, 2, 3, I'll race you to the shed. Let's go. And I immediately protested. I insisted that we were trespassing, that the farm likely belonged to one of the houses we had just passed. I didn't want to get in trouble, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. But I also knew I would be left behind in the dark to fend for myself if I didn't take off running towards that shed. Just as we prepared to venture down that spooky road, with my heart racing and pounding out of my chest, I heard the creaking of a door and a hard thud as it shut. We all froze and stared at one another, trying to figure out where the sound had come from. Allie said it must have been from the shed. The door was probably not firmly secured and had blown shut in the wind, she said, an explanation I was prepared to accept, but did not truly believe it. That shed was so far in the distance I could barely see it, just a vague outline. I was ready to turn and run back, but they began walking ahead of me on the gravel road. Now slowly walking and trying to listen for sounds of activity. As we walked, I felt the distinct sensation that someone was following us. There were 5 of us, but whomever was walking furthest back said they could hear footsteps immediately behind them. But when we stopped, they stopped with us, and when we turned around, there was no one there. As we approached the shed, I heard the rustling of leaves and footsteps in the woods. These were not the sounds of an animal. They sounded like human footsteps. I was not even thinking of the paranormal right now. I feared we were being followed by a living person, and I was terrified. Haley shouted out that she swore she saw a shadow dart in front of the shed and then disappear. I didn't see anything, but also I was too nervous to think. We quietly approached it. I was on high alert for any movement. Haley, the bravest of us, walked up to one of the shed windows and began to peer inside. It was too dark to see anything. She took out her flashlight and began to look inside. For a few seconds, she looked around and all seemed normal. All of a sudden, she let out a loud, terrified scream, dropped her entire bucket of candy, and ran away from us through the field and back to the road. She was stuttering as she tried to tell us what she saw, and none of us understood what she was trying to say since she was so far away now. She was shaking profusely and practically in tears, and begged us to run back to her and go back home. I could tell she was genuinely scared. Lights began to turn on in the few of the nearby houses and voices could be heard. Haley's scream must have caught their attention. We quickly picked up our belongings, dashed back to the street as quietly as possible, and headed back to the main road. No one saw us as we fled as fast as we could down the dark street. When we got back to the house, Haley confessed what she saw. She said that she was looking in the shed, and at first she only saw gardening tools and empty crates, but then she saw a child. Not a normal child, but a small boy with gaping, bloody holes where the eyes were supposed to be, a bony, skeleton-like, emaciated frame, and the most disgusting, rotting teeth she had ever seen, smiling in a sinister smile, walking towards the window. We all froze, terrified by the thought, but we all promised that no matter what we did, we would keep it secret from Jenny's mom that we disobeyed her rule. To this day, I don't know if she really saw the image of the child in the window or if she was playing a prank on us. But recently, I drove down the road during daylight and noticed that the shed was no longer there. I learned that Jenny's mother had almost purchased a home on that street, but had decided against it because she preferred the street they ended up living on. And she too had found the abandoned farm area to be creepy and off-putting, and didn't want us there because it was poorly lit. If only she knew what Haley actually saw that night.